The South China Sea has become the epicenter of a high-stakes geopolitical standoff, where the ambitions of China and the resolve of the Philippines collide on the open water. This vast expanse, once known primarily for its bustling trade routes and rich marine life, is now a stage for power plays and brinkmanship that reverberate far beyond its shores. Once a vital artery for global commerce, these waters have transformed into a tense arena. Here, Coast Guard vessels and naval patrols from both sides maneuver with calculated precision, testing each other's resolve in a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Every encounter is fraught with risk, as even the smallest misstep could escalate into open confrontation. Since mid-2023, confrontations have grown not only more frequent, but also more intense. China has stepped up its enforcement of sweeping territorial claims, deploying larger and more assertive patrols. The Philippines, meanwhile, is pushing back with renewed determination, refusing to yield ground or abandon its rights in these contested waters. Manila's new strategy is bold and public, documenting and broadcasting Chinese actions to the world. By rallying international support and turning what were once quiet disputes into daily, highly visible showdowns, the Philippines is reshaping the narrative and drawing global attention to its plight. For China, control of the South China Sea is more than a matter of pride. It's a core national interest, vital for security, economic influence, and regional dominance. The Chinese government sees these waters as essential to its long-term strategy, and it is willing to project power to secure them. For the Philippines, the stakes are existential. Sovereignty, food security, and the livelihoods of millions hang in the balance. The nation's maritime borders, its access to vital fishing grounds, and its sense of national identity are all at risk in this escalating conflict. Each patrol, each resupply mission becomes a potential flashpoint, an event that could spiral out of control with a single wrong move. The risk of miscalculation is ever present, and the margin for error is razor thin. The world watches anxiously, aware that a single incident could ignite a wider conflict with consequences that would ripple across the globe. International organizations and foreign governments are increasingly drawn into the fray, seeking ways to diffuse tensions, but often finding themselves powerless to stop the escalation. This is no longer a distant diplomatic issue debated in conference rooms. It's a present, escalating reality, one that affects everyone from fishermen whose livelihoods are threatened, to military planners preparing for the worst, to ordinary families living in the shadow of conflict. The path forward is uncertain, and the promise of peace feels more remote than ever. As tensions mount and the world holds its breath, the South China Sea remains a powder keg, its future, and the fate of those who depend on it, hanging in the balance. Two flashpoints define the ongoing dispute in the South China Sea: Scarborough Shoal and the Spratly Islands. These areas are not just dots on a map, they are the heart of a high-stakes geopolitical contest, drawing in regional and global powers. Scarborough Shoal, located just 220 kilometers from the Philippine island of Luzon, is a strategic maritime prize. Whoever controls this shoal gains a commanding position over the northern South China Sea, with the ability to monitor and potentially restrict access to vital shipping lanes. Its proximity to key Philippine military bases makes it a critical security concern for Manila, while Beijing views it as essential to its own maritime ambitions. The Spratlys, a scattered archipelago of tiny reefs and islets, are claimed in whole or in part by several nations, including China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan. This tangled web of overlapping claims has made the area a persistent flashpoint for tension and confrontation. To assert its sovereignty, the Philippines maintains outposts like the BRP Sierra Madre, a deliberately grounded ship on 2nd Thomas Shoal. Filipino Marines stationed there endure harsh conditions, serving as a living symbol of the country's determination to defend its maritime rights, even in the face of overwhelming Chinese pressure and frequent standoffs. In 2012, China seized control of Scarborough Shoal, blockading Filipino fishermen and restricting their access to traditional fishing grounds. More recently, Beijing declared the area a marine nature reserve, a move widely seen as an attempt to legitimize its hold and further cement its control over the contested waters. In the Spratlys, China has transformed reefs into sprawling artificial islands, bristling with military infrastructure, radar domes, airstrips, and missile batteries. These outposts have shifted the balance of power, allowing China to project force deep into the heart of Southeast Asia's maritime crossroads. the Philippines has turned to international law for support, invoking the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, and a landmark 2016 tribunal ruling that invalidated China's sweeping 9-line claim. However, China rejects these legal arguments, insisting on its own historical rights and refusing to recognize the tribunal's authority. The result is a tense and dangerous deadlock, legal, strategic, and military. Both sides remain entrenched, with no easy solution in sight, as the world watches this maritime standoff unfold. The dispute has erupted into real-world confrontations, ramming incidents, blockades, and water cannon attacks. What was once a simmering diplomatic standoff has now spilled over into open hostility on the water, with both sides pushing the limits of maritime law and international patience. In March 2025, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel rammed a Philippine fishing boat near Sandy Cay, each side blaming the other for the dangerous encounter. The incident left the fishing boat damaged and its crew shaken, highlighting the very real risks faced by those who venture into these contested waters. China's Coast Guard and maritime militia maintain a near-constant blockade around key features, using their ships to physically prevent access. Despite this, the Philippines persists with risky resupply missions to its outposts, determined to assert its presence and sovereignty. These missions are high stakes, with supply boats harassed and sometimes attacked, each success or failure broadcast as propaganda. The crews face not only the threat of violence but also the pressure of knowing the world is watching their every move. The military dimension is growing. Chinese helicopters now patrol low over contested waters, signaling readiness to escalate. The presence of military hardware adds a new layer of tension, raising fears that a miscalculation could spark a wider conflict. Both sides wage an information war. Manila publicizes Chinese aggression to rally support, while Beijing paints the Philippines as a U.S. pawn. Public opinion is being shaped not just at home, but across the region and the world. Social media and news coverage have turned every incident into a global spectacle. Viral videos and dramatic headlines fuel outrage, making it harder for leaders to back down without losing face. The conflict is now as much about narrative and perception as it is about territory. Each side seeks to control the story, knowing that international opinion could tip the balance in this high-stakes standoff. The risk of escalation is ever present, with every new incident threatening to push the region closer to open conflict. For the Philippines, the South China Sea is a lifeline, its richest fishing grounds and a potential source of vital energy. China's blockade has devastated coastal communities, forcing fishermen into debt and threatening food security. The seabed holds untapped oil and gas, but Chinese patrols make exploration nearly impossible for Manila. China, too, sees these resources as crucial for its energy security and strategic ambitions. Militarized Chinese islands now monitor and control the region, posing a direct threat to Philippine security. For both nations, the dispute is about more than resources. It's about sovereignty, national pride, and survival. Deep-rooted nationalism on both sides makes compromise nearly impossible. The U.S. looms large over the standoff, bound to the Philippines by a mutual defense treaty. Recent U.S. clarifications have emboldened Manila, making clear that attacks on Philippine forces in the South China Sea could trigger American intervention. The Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement gives U.S. forces access to key Philippine bases, signaling deepening ties and deterring Chinese escalation. China sees this alliance as a direct threat, accusing the Philippines of acting as a U.S. proxy and fearing encirclement. The risk: a local clash could draw in the U.S., escalating into a superpower confrontation. All sides now operate in a dangerous, gray zone, careful to avoid open war, but constantly testing limits. The U.S. presence is both shield and potential trigger for a far larger conflict. The human cost is stark. Filipino fishing communities have been devastated by China's ongoing blockade, which has upended daily life. Once thriving towns now face deepening poverty, as fishermen are chased away, their catches seized, and their boats damaged or destroyed. Many are forced to abandon their trade, leaving for cities or even abroad, eroding the unique coastal culture that once thrived here. The economic pain ripples outward, affecting entire local economies and small businesses that depend on fishing. The South China Sea is also a vital global trade artery. Rising tensions threaten shipping and international supply chains. Both nations pour resources into military buildup, diverting crucial funds away from development and social programs. Nationalism surges, hardening public opinion and making compromise between the countries even harder. The plight of the fishermen has become a powerful rallying cry for Philippine sovereignty and national pride. There's no easy solution. Sovereignty, resources, and security are non-negotiable for both sides. The 2016 tribunal ruling gave the Philippines a legal win, but without enforcement, it's powerless against China's might. Diplomacy is gridlocked, with leaders on both sides under intense nationalist pressure. The likely future, a tense equilibrium of constant incidents, blockades, and diplomatic protests, short of war, but always on the brink. Any miscalculation could spiral into open conflict, especially if a crisis erupts over Taiwan. The South China Sea's fate is now tied to the broader US-China rivalry. For now, the standoff endures, a defining flashpoint in Asia's new era of great power competition. The world holds its breath, hoping the storm does not break.